Welcome to the very first issue of Crossing the Aisle. I'm Paul Sharp. This is Gage Cross, and we're going to be talking about the 2020 election
Thank you for having me.
and the debates. We had two debates with 20 of the 25 candidates. Gage, what is your thoughts on how many candidates the Democratic Party has? Do you think it's going to hurt them in the long run, or give people a better choice?
Well, I find it very interesting that the Democratic Party at this current moment has over 20 or more candidates that have qualified or who have decided to run. That shows me that they're fired up and they're ready to go.
But my question always is, with 25 candidates, are they fired up to do great things for the American people, or are they just fired up to beat Trump?
I would say there's quite a bit that's wanting to do what's right for the American people, but then you have some that's just wanting to beat Trump.
That we know. Let's go to the debate. We had two debates. The first night didn't really have any front runners. The second night had a lot of the front runners.
Right.
And it was a very interesting debate.
Wednesday, June 26th, we had Cory Booker, Julian Castro, Bill de Blasio, John Delaney, Tulsi Gabbard, Jay Inslee, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Tim Ryan, and Elizabeth Warren. That was the first 10 on Wednesday, June 26th.
That was, and let's go to the second night. You got the list on the second night?
I do. The second night was held Thursday, June 27th. Michael Bennet, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg, Kristen Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, John Hickenlooper, Bernie Sanders, Eric Swalwell, Marianne Williamson, and Andrew Yang. Those were the 10 that competed on June 27th.
That was a good night. Now, on the first night, of course, we had Beto O'Rourke, who is not doing well in the polls, I think, as he thought he would, having come so close to beating Ted Cruz. So, what do you think of his chances of getting the presidency?
You know, I think Beto means well, but he's going to have to step up his game. What I observed in that first debate was Beto seemed to be out of place. He didn't have much information as to what I thought he would have in that debate. So I'm hoping that Beto will learn from this first debate and realize what he needs to do if he does qualify for the second debate.
Bill de Blasio, mayor of New York, or governor, whatever he is up there, he did not do well in the debates. He tried, but I don't think it came across well, his performance. What do you think about his performance at the debates?
Well, I do recall he criticized calls to keep private insurance as a healthcare option and shared his personal experiences as the son of a World War II veteran who took his own life and a father of a black son.
Bill is also a billionaire. Should Trump not win in 2020, do you think America wants another billionaire?
In my personal view of perspective, I do not want to see another billionaire. But a lot of your politicians who have wrote books or who have done, other things beside their political job, they have become millionaires or billionaires. I would not want to see another billionaire, but many people do. But my view of perspective, I do not, as an American citizen. I want to see that common, that common ground person lead this country.
There's a few things that in the debate. One was Bernie Sanders, who was allegedly a front runner. He was in second place according to the polls. He made a statement that he would have to raise taxes, but you'd save money on health care. Talking about raising taxes, how well do you think that went over with the American people?
When someone says, I'm going to raise taxes, that automatically sets off an alarm. many people do not want to hear that. I, for one, I do believe we do need to raise taxes in certain areas for certain programs and certain things. That's what will help. But whenever you say out bluntly that you're going to raise taxes on the middle class, but he did advise that it would cost them less in premiums on health insurance, sugarcoating it in a way. I don't like when someone blatantly comes out and says, "I'm going to raise taxes on you." We got to have a good explanation. We got to have a good talk over the matter on why a certain person is going to raise taxes on certain things. So when someone does say, "I'm going to raise taxes," that's automatically, like I said, that's an alarm to the American people. And I don't think it really went over well, especially when you say you're going to raise taxes on the middle classmen. That right there, like I said, it's an alarm. It's not a good thing to approach. And like I said, I don't think it went well over the American people.
I know you watch the debates, and of course I watch them. Being basically a Republican strategist, I like some of the Democratic ideas. You have some on the debate, so tell us what you gained from the debate.
Okay, here's some candidate highlights from June 26. Cory Booker said economic policy and gun regulations were not working in his community, which he desired as low-income, black, and brown. He also discussed violence against transgender Americans. We also have Julian Castro advocated establishing a Marshall Plan for Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. He also condemned the Mettering policy on immigrants seeking asylum and said he would discriminate illegal border crossings. John Delaney opposed Medicare for All and said that Democrats should focus on lowering pharmaceutical prices, infrastructure, and job creation, rather than the Mueller report on impeachment proceedings. Tulsi Gabbard said that nuclear war was the greatest threat to national security and called for the U.S. to return to a nuclear agreement with Iran. She also discussed her shift on LGBT policy, coming from a social conservative household to serving alongside LGBT service members. Jay Inslee highlighted his executive experience in Washington, saying he was the only candidate who passed laws on abortion and health insurance. He also discussed climate change and his support for unions. Amy Klobuchar responded to Inslee by saying there were 3 women on this stage who also fought for abortion. She discussed her electability, saying she had won districts in Minnesota that went for Trump by double digits. Beto O'Rourke defended private insurance as a healthcare option and said pharmaceutical companies need to be held accountable for their connection to the opioid crisis. Tim Ryan criticized General Motors for closing the facility Lordstown, Ohio, and manufacturing cars in Mexico after receiving a tax break. He also said the center of the Democratic Party need to shift from coastal and elitist, and Ivy League to the forgotten communities. Elizabeth Warren joined de Pelosi in being the only candidates on stage to support abolishing private health insurance. She also named climate change as the greatest threat to the United States.
All right, let's go back to one of those.
Which one was it?
Talking about the Iran agreement, going back to that, this week, Iran has announced that they have surpassed the limit that agreement puts on their uranium.
Right, that was said by Tulsi Gabbard.
Mm-hmm. Tulsi, of course, she thought we should stay in it, but now Iran has blatantly broke that agreement with the other countries. So how do you think that's going to affect our policies and the candidates' policies towards Iran? Do you think we should go back to the agreement and try to work it out diplomatically, or do you think we should take a harder stance towards Iran and their thirst for nuclear weapons?
Well, first and foremost, nuclear war is something that's very terrifying. In my opinion, I believe that you need to have strong relations with a country that is very armed with nuclear weapons. I do believe that you need to have good communication with that country, and first and foremost, make sure that you both are in agreement with your nuclear weapons. So with Tulsi, what she was saying was nuclear was the greatest threat to the national security, and she called for the U.S. to return to a nuclear agreement with Iran. So I do agree with Tulsi. You know, because nuclear war, it's one of the greatest threats. It is, and it's scary to think about nuclear war. So I do believe that you need to know what's going on. You need to know, you know, who's doing what. So being in an agreement with Iran, like I said, I think it's a smart move to be in an agreement because, like I said, you need to know what's going on and you need to know what someone's doing because it is a very, very national threat. Nuclear war is.
Oh, let's talk about Pete Buttigieg. He's had a very rough couple of weeks with police shooting in his city. Do you think he's handling that well? And do you think it will affect his campaign to become president?
Pete Buttigieg is like you just said, he's mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and there was that brutality that happened. I think you know, which on stage it was. I don't think it was handled well. Whenever one of the candidates had told him, "You need to fire the chief," but Pete did say it's under investigation, and he's going to handle it whenever he gets all the information in. But that could affect Pete. It very well could. But we truly don't know what's truly happened. But as the investigation goes on, you know, Pete as mayor, I believe, will do his job, and maybe he'll make the best decision out of the situation.
Well, we do have to wait until the investigation is complete.
Correct.
So we have all the evidence. We don't want to start judging him or his actions or reactions to this without having all the evidence.
Correct.
We've had some pretty bad guffaws, if you use that word, over the past month. One of them was when President Trump declared an emergency at the border, and everybody said, no, there's no emergency, but now everybody says there is an emergency.
Right.
So sometimes I think people, do you think candidates jump too quick on an issue, try to get the point across instead of waiting for all the evidence to come out?
Absolutely. I think many candidates jump on an issue before really knowing what's truly going on, and that's one of my things that I'm really stern about is making sure that I know information, making sure I know what's going on. Has there been enough information to come out? Has there been enough investigation on something? Has there been enough studying? I find it very important to know what's really going on, and I do believe that many politicians need to do that aspect, is to know what's going on in a situation before jumping on in a situation.
Let's change a little bit our thinking. I'm probably the only Republican that believes in global warming.
Mm-hmm.
As we're here in Tennessee, swaying across the country, roads are buckling, the mollusks are cooking in the water on the coastlines. I believe global warming is a problem. Whether it's man causing the problem or a shift in the earth, we need to take action to help keep it from getting to a point where it's unbearable.
Right.
One of the things about global warming came out in the new Green Deal from AOC was the use of solar power. Now, I'm a big guy on solar power and renewable energy sources. And I believe that could be the future for so many reasons. There's a lot of upfront cost, but long-term, cities, counties, states, and the United States government can save a lot of money on their electric by having renewable energy.
Correct.
And we need to, if we're going to switch over to renewable energy, have training programs for the coal miners so that they could shift from being a coal miner to building, installing, and maintaining the renewable energy sources that we use, with coal as, of course, our backup. What is your feeling on global warming and where the United States should shift to in 2020 and after?
We need to get away from fossil fuels. We truly need to get away from fossil fuels. Global warming is it's a true it's a true phenomenon. That's it's true. Of course, President Trump stated that it's a hoax invented by the Chinese. Global warming, it's unreal. You know, people have experienced high temperatures in places that's never had high temperatures. We've seen glaciers that are melting, ice shelves that are melting. And like I said, it's time to realize that we need to do something to help save this planet. Global warming is a true crisis, and it's affecting so many people around the world. We have to remember that, you know, this Earth is our only home. It's our only home, and this Earth is going to be home to our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. And I want to make sure that my nieces and nephews and my great nieces and nephews and so on have a home that they can live without it destroying itself. We have to take action. We have to take action. Either investing more in solar energy, wind power, battery vehicles. We need to take action, and it's time to take action. We've seen high records of hurricanes in the past few years. These recent earthquakes. We've got recent tornadoes. We've got recent storms. We've got so much stuff that's happening, going on, is due to global warming. And we, as people, we do affect global warming. We speed up the process. That's my belief. But I do believe we need to take a step away from fossil fuels, and we need to invest in clean, efficient energy.
Gabe, I now want to talk about healthcare. Now, I have a problem with Medicare for all, and this is my problem. One is that it would be expensive. The other is there's so much fraud now in Medicaid and Medicare and the veteran system. All these three systems are government run. They're all broken down. And I wonder, do we really need another or a bigger government health care program? So mine is we're going to take Medicare, which currently have to be 65. We'll lower the age down to 50. Then we can make the Affordable Care Act a little bit more affordable. I mean, I've seen some of the people that have it, and the deductibles are high, into the thousands of dollars. And, of course, ensure that every child and pregnant woman has health care. That's a big deal for me. And, of course, I would pay for that by having a 5% tax on internet purchases from companies inside the United States. What's your ideas on health care and direction you think we should go?
Health care, in my opinion, is a human right and not a privilege. Health care should be one of the most important discussions in Washington. I do believe in a Medicare for all payer system, but then again, I do believe in keeping private health insurance available. I believe that the government wants a healthcare for all payer system, then that would be a great idea. And also keep the private health insurance open, available for those who want private health insurance. We have to remember that health insurance, health care, like I said, is one of the most top priorities that should be discussed. It's something that I feel that most politicians try not to touch because of, like you said, the Affordable Care Act and Medicare, all your other insurance companies. But we got to remember the pharmaceutical industry is truly robbing those who on health care.
No doubt.
And yeah, and you have a lot of big corporations who are sticking their hands in healthcare, which is causing healthcare a very hard to get thing. People ask, well, how are you going to pay for a Medicare for all payer system? Well, people don't never ask, well, how are you paying bailouts for big corporations? Mm-hmm. They never do ask, well, how are you paying those? So that's my question is, why did we get questioned how we're going to pay for it when you have millionaires and billionaires who are escaping paying high in taxes, who are not paying taxes at all, and we are bailing them out. But how are we paying for the bailouts? So there's a rhyme and a reason for both situations, and healthcare for all can be paid for. We just got to know how to do it.
I think people don't realize that when a person doesn't have insurance and they go to the hospital is legally required to care for them.
Correct.
They have to stabilize them, care for them, and whatever until they decide whether they're going to keep them or whether they're going to send them home. Now, the problem with that is we're paying for all that.
Correct.
People that don't have insurance go to the emergency room.
It raises the price for the next person who does have health insurance.
The other problem I have with the price of health care in this country, and again, I'm a Republican, so we have our thoughts on this, right or wrong. When I was a child, lawyers couldn't advertise. But now when I go on TV, there are lawyers, and I won't mention their names. If you've had this, if you think you've had this, if a family member has had this, call us up, we're going to get you money. Tort reform. Doctors are having to pay an enormous amount of money for malpractice insurance. And they have to pay this because there are so many lawyers advertising on TV, you can sue if you took this medication. Someone in your family took this medication. Or you thought about taking this medication. And this definitely has to be driving up healthcare costs. What is your feeling about tort reform and these lawyers that advertise, basically being ambulance chasers, advertising for clients to sue?
I think it's truly causing people to really want to get hurt. They want to find ways to make easy money. And so with these advertisements, I do believe that it's causing people not want to work. It's causing people want to be able to get injured, and it's a fast way for a moneymaker.
Since we only have 10, 15 minutes left, let's discuss immigration. Nancy Pelosi, I'm not a big fan of hers, you might guess. She said that 90% of the drugs coming to the United States are coming through border checkpoints. And she stopped, put a period on the end of that sentence. And when I heard it, I thought there should be a comma. Because how are 90% of the drugs coming through a secure border checkpoint? We're supposed to be checking for drugs. And if we changed the border checkpoint so that we could capture some of these drug dealers bringing drugs across, we take that 90% and knock it down to, say, 30%. Does she think the drug dealers are just going to say, oh, well, we can't get in the United States now, so we'll have to quit selling drugs to them? Or are they going to try alternative means to get across the border? So what is your general feeling about drugs crossing the border? We'll do drugs before we do people. What is your feeling about the drugs coming across the border that are hurting Americans? And what do you think is the best way for us to stop that? Or lower it down to something lower than 30%?
Well, I do believe in strong border security. And there is reports of millions of drugs trafficking through the border, we had to have a strong national border security. We had to have a strong defense. Um, we got to make sure that we do it properly and humanly. That's my belief, that we do it properly and humanly. That we make sure that we are stopping those drug cartels from coming through the border. It's so important, like I said, to have that security and making sure that we do have strong border security. We got to make sure that our country is safe. We have to make sure that our citizens is safe, and we have to make sure that those who are trafficking those drugs are caught and are responsible for their actions, held responsible for their actions. It's time. It's a time in America where, drugs is at a all high time record. Even in this county, we have drugs trafficking in and out. Where do we begin? That's the question. We need to find a true resolution to this problem. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we do have the right answers and the right actions. That's why I do believe that we need to make sure that we do have the right answers and right actions to the problem.
And then spoken at the first debate.
Cory Booker had 10.9 minutes. Beto O'Rourke had 10.11 minutes. Elizabeth Warren had 9.3 minutes. Julian Castro had 8.8 minutes. Amy Klobuchar had 8.5 minutes. Tim Ryan had 7.7 minutes. Tulsi Gabbard had 6.6 minutes. John Delaney had 6.6 minutes. Bill de Blasio had 5.6 minutes. And Jay Inslee had 5 minutes total. That was the minutes spoken by each of those candidates in the first debate on Wednesday.
I want to bring up a good point on that. I've always believed and taught the people that work for me that communication, true communication, is when we listen to understand, not just wait for our turn to speak. Do you think there was a lot of listening to understand the debate, or just waiting for their chance to speak? And some not waiting for their chance to speak, they just spoke.
I'd say more were waiting and wanting their voice to be heard for the American people. We got to remember, they're up there, like I said, either they're wanting what's right for the American people, or they're up there because they want to beat Donald Trump. That's why most of them are up there. But I do, like I said earlier into this interview, I do believe that a lot of them are wanting their voice to be heard for the American people, and they're wanting to fight for what's right for the American people. But there is quite a bit of those candidates who want to make sure Donald Trump is out of office come 2020.
Donald Trump, when he campaigned in 2016 and throughout his time in the White House, is very aggressive towards people that don't understand him, or people that don't like him, or don't like what he tweeted, or like what he said. He had a very aggressive attitude. And some people in the Republican Party believe that's why he got elected. Because he had a very aggressive attitude. Do you think the same kind of attitude would work for a Democrat?
No, I do not. I believe that the Democratic Party platform is about communication. It's about understanding. It's about playing by what's right for the American people. I've always realized, I've always observed that the Democratic candidate tends to be more well-spoken. But then again, a lot of people do like that about Mr. Trump, President Trump. They like the bluntness. They like the non-politician part. They like the businessman. They like that. So, in my opinion, Democratic voters do not like the attitude that Trump has. But you have a lot of American citizens who don't vote democratically, who may be independent, who may be conservative, what have you. They do like that bluntness, and they do like the non-politician part about Donald Trump.
Well, it's definitely changed the presidency. Used to be presidents had to go to the news stations to get the point across, and Trump is king of the tweet.
Yeah.
Good or bad, like him or don't like him, he's king of the tweets. He takes the issues directly to the American people. Do you believe this policy of tweeting out what you think and what you said, tweeting out policy, going directly to the people, much like television did when it came along, do you think social media has changed the presidency forever?
Of course, and Donald Trump has done just that with the tweets. It can get you in trouble, or it could help you. And I believe that we need a president who needs to lay off the tweets. I don't agree with all the tweets because sometimes, they get misunderstood, not just by American people, but people all over the world.
I have that same feeling that sometimes people misinterpret his tweets.
Correct.
As a businessman, you always want to be strong.
And that's what I'm aiming at. That's what I'm saying is, I don't like the tweeting part because there's a lot of misunderstanding by a lot of people.
There is.
But he could have something on there that's understandable, that I will agree with. But like I said, there's a lot of people, not just here in this country, but around the world, who sees those tweets and they misunderstand them and they find that, is the president doing his job or is he just sitting there tweeting? That kind of situation.
Well, he only gets about 3 hours sleep a night, so I'd say he tweets quite a lot. Do you think that's one of the things that hurt Trump in his first term, is that people did not understand him and he was bringing a different style to the White House, one of a businessman?
Of course, American people were used to a president for 8 years that was well spoken and a very well speaker, and he kept everything professional, everything in line, as into addressing things and speaking and wanting people to hear what they want to hear. Donald Trump, like I said, he's very blunt, and that's why I do believe a lot of people did not understand him in this first term, as his first term. If he was to get elected again, maybe people will understand him more than they did his first term, due to being used to hearing a well-spoken politician. Because Donald Trump, like I said, is not a politician, and a lot of people likes that part about him, the fact that he's not a politician. So if he was to win a second term, maybe, like I said, people will get used to have him around, and they will get used to how he speaks.
We can only hope so. We're quite a ways away from the 2020 election, but we do have the debates on the Democratic side. We have one guy on the Republican side that thinks he can beat Trump. I don't even know who he is. He gets 15 minutes of fame. That's what he gets. In the few minutes we got left, let's talk about Cortez. She's known affectionately as AOC. She was a bartender, then she became a member of the House of Representatives. She is very vocal about everything. And she likes getting in front of the press, and she likes talking. Do you think some of the things that she has said hurt the Democratic Party, or is helping the Democratic Party?
From my point of perspective, I think she's done a lot of harm because many people don't understand what she's truly saying. And what she's saying, it is way out there. It's what she's truly saying. It is hard to comprehend with a lot of people. She is very far left, and very hard worker. Very hard worker. She has ran a grassroots campaign against a multi-millionaire, and she won that election because she did just what you need to do as a candidate: is go door to door and raise campaign funds, and she did just that. I like her. I do think she's a very progressive person. She is fighting for what she believes right. But there's a lot of people who don't understand what she's truly saying, and it's a lot to take in. And so she does do some harm to the party, as in people not understanding what she's truly saying, and they believe what she's saying is far out there. But I do like the aspect of her fighting for what's right, and she's a worker. She's always outspoken. She's always having something to say. So she's very vocal, and she's always um, fighting for her district and fighting for the people in New York, and not just of New York, all over the whole country. So in a way, when I say she's harming the party, is when someone's not understanding what she's saying, because what she does says it's a lot to comprehend. Okay.
Since we're talking about people that are misunderstood, let's talk about Nancy Pelosi, the current leader of the Democratic Party in the House. She has her fans and she has her critics. There are Democrats that don't like her, there's Republicans that don't like her, none of the Republicans like her, and independents that don't like her. She's been around for a long time. And she's trying to do the right thing, I believe. But the House hasn't gotten a whole lot done since they took over. Do you think that's going to hurt them in 2020 as far as keeping control of the House, maybe getting control of the Senate, and putting a Democrat in the White House?
See, I do believe in passing the torch phrase. I do believe that she's done, she's done quite a bit of work for the Democratic Party, and she's done a lot of things for her state and country also. But I do believe it's time for new blood in the party, and I believe it's time for someone else to step in that role. Nancy Pelosi, I'm not the biggest fan, but I do believe that she has tried to do what she believes right. That's all I can say. That she believes that what she's done is right. But I'm not a fan of Miss Pelosi, because I do believe that she's going to keep old same policies and keep the old same party around, and it's time for change. And I don't think she's ready for that change, but I'm ready for that change.
When it comes to change and passing the torch, there are a lot of them. Mitch McConnell on the Republican side, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on some of the Republican leaders who are still there? Like you just say, Mitch McConnell.
Well, like Mitch McConnell, he's the Republican leader in the Senate. I have a feeling he should have left the Senate a long time ago. When Trump was first elected, of course, they all jumped on Trump. And we're now currently, as we're going into 2020, I feel Mitch McConnell is not putting the proper bills forward so that they can say, well, they didn't get nothing done. He's got his own kind of way of doing things. It's the old way. And he doesn't do a whole lot of bipartisan work. Me being a former professional wrestler, I think Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer should be put in the ring and fight it out, because those guys are constantly fighting. And I believe maybe the Republicans put a younger person in charge of the Senate, someone that could work with the Democrats, find out what they can agree on.
Right, yeah. I believe in bipartisanship all the way. I believe that you have to have both sides working together to get the job done, and that's what it's going to take. Exactly. That's what it's going to take, is when you have both sides coming together to fight for what's right for the American people of this country, and coming together. In which I've seen quite a bit of that here in this recent election, administration. As I've seen a lot of Democrats, Republicans come together to work on a certain bill or issue. But I do believe we got to have more of that. We got to have more working together.
You know what else we need to have more of? We need more Americans going to the polls. If you're not registered to vote, register to vote. And whether you vote early, vote absentee, or go out on voting day, vote for the person that best reflects your choices and your ideas.
Right. Yeah, I find it very important. I find it very important for people to register to vote, and that's one thing that I do. I do enjoy doing. I this last election here in this county, I registered 120 odd people alone, and I always tell them, I don't care how you vote, as long as you get out and vote and exercise that right, because it's a right that was fought for by my grandfather and by my uncles and other relatives of mine. They fought for that right for you to be able to vote. And I always encourage everyone to exercise that right, because it's something that I take, I really take pride in doing in this country is exercising my right to vote. And I do encourage everyone to register to vote if you're not registered. And I do find it very important for you to go and vote, because if you want these corporate politicians to stay in office, the only way you got to do that is not to go vote.
Also, get involved. Google the issues. Google the different candidates. Find out what's going on. And make an informative choice when you vote. And if you've got a candidate you really like, get involved. Whether it's stuffing envelopes, putting up posters, or just talking to your friends. The political process, I believe, Gage, works when everybody is a part of the process. And we put all our partisan views aside, our partisan feelings aside, and work together.
Right.
To elect what we feel is the best person, whether it be the House, the Senate, or the White House.
Before we leave, I want to go over the June 27th candidate highlights.
All right.
Michael Bennett condemned Citizens United. He also shared the story of his mother's separation from her family in Poland during World War II while discussing his involvement in the bipartisan gang of 8 immigration, legislation, and family separations. Joe Biden defended his record on civil rights and school integration after Harris said that he had worked with segregationists to oppose busing. He also said he could work with Republicans, pointing to a 2012 deal with Mitch McConnell on taxes. Pete Buttigieg said he had been unable to diversify South Bend's police force and that systematic racism in policing needed to be addressed. He also said there was a tension between Christian values and family separations at the border. Kristen Gillibrand said that women's reproductive rights are under assault by the Republican Party, and abortion policies created by compromise like the Hyde Amendment were unacceptable. She also said that she supported a buy-in transition period before adopting a Medicare for all system. Kamala Harris criticized Biden's record on busing and shared she was in the second class to integrate at her public school in California. She also opposed the Obama administration's deportation policy, saying it affected the immigrant community's ability to reach out to law enforcement. John Hickenlooper said Democrats needed to make clear that they are not socialists. He said he supported the mission of the Green New Deal, but opposed its job guarantee. On immigration, Hickenlooper said the Trump administration's family separation policy was a tantamount to kidnapping. Bernie Sanders said that under his policies, the middle class would pay more in taxes, but less in health care and education. He also opposed court packing, called for rotating judges, and said that support for Roe versus Wade would be litmus tests for his federal judicial nominees. Eric Swalwell quoted Biden to say that political leadership should pass to a new generation, particularly on issues of automation and climate change. He also stated that he believes bans on assault weapons semi-automatic, and he believes that the government should buy them back. Marianne Williamson said that the discussion around healthcare needed to address the underlying causes of chronic illness, including pharmaceutical and environmental policies. She also directly challenged Trump, saying she would harness love for political purpose and not hate, for which she believes Donald Trump has done. He also said that his first international relationship he would reset would be China to seek cooperation on climate change, AI, and North Korea. He also stated the $1,000 a month. Correct? What did he state about that?
I can't remember, but
He just believed that every family household should have $1,000 a month.
Well, people need a living wage, not a minimum wage. But if I can be a little humorous, the people at McDonald's can't get my order right now. I don't think $15 an hour is going to help them. I also think if we go too quickly to $15 an hour, that companies will basically, as some fast food companies are, replace people with computers. We can lose jobs. It's something we need to do over time to get to a living wage. And we'll discuss that more next time.
Okay.
I want to discuss the living wage next time, and the guaranteed jobs, income, and student loans. So next week we'll be doing that show. We're going to become student loans, income inequality, and we'll go down that road. Thanks for watching, and hey, be a part of the political process.
Also, I want to remind everyone about the second Democratic primary debate, which will be held July 30th and the 31st, 2019, in Detroit, Michigan. CNN will be the host. Maximum of candidates will be 20. The third Democratic Party primary debate will be September 12th and the 13th of 2019. TBD, ABC, and Univision will be the host. The maximum will be 20 candidates. But also, let's remember that certain candidates may or may not qualify for the next debates. It all comes down to how much money they raise and how much donors they have and the coverage that they are doing.
Since we got a few seconds, and you talked about raising the money, Kamala Harris did well in the debates. She moved up the ladder a little bit, but she ain't raising no money. Do you think that's going to hurt her chances, regardless of how she does in the polls?
I think, which Kamala, I believe, had a great start in this first Democratic primary debate. And I believe if she qualifies for the second and she doubles down on what she's going to say, I believe that she'll have more donors. Time will tell. But also, I want to thank you for having me here today at the crossing the aisle, and I want to remind everybody that the only way